with President-elect Trump's former attorney and fixer, Michael Cohen. He's also the host of the Mea Culpa podcast and YouTube channel, The Michael Cohen Show. Michael, good to see you again. Thanks for coming on. Really appreciate it. There's a lot to talk about.
Good to see you, Jim.
Yeah, we were covering some of this at the top of the program, but let's talk about Greenland. Trump has repeatedly suggested the U.S. should buy the Danish territory. Have you ever heard him talking about doing something like this? Has this come up in the past? What's with this fixation on Greenland and Canada and the Panama Canal and so on?
Yes, let's also not forget that Mexico is not out of play as well. Basically, you won't need walls anymore. You'll have the shoreline. Greenland is a little bit different. Yeah, it's a strategic location, but we have strategic locations in other parts of the world as well. Like we have an Air Force base in Qatar. Does that mean we're going to take over or annex Qatar? The answer is no. We have talked about things like this, but this is something, again, that's new. You know, I want to sort of bring up a point which is correlated to this, which is we as Democrats have to start living in reality. All right. Following Don Jr. to Greenland, talking about the Panama Canal, talking about annexing Canada and making it the 51st state, and whoever the prime minister will be the governor. Remember that on January 20th, a lot of people get angry at me because during the campaign, you say certain things which are vitriolic because you want your candidate to win. But here's the reality. The reality is that on January 20th of 2025, Donald Trump is going to be placing his hand on the Trumpy Bible, and he will be sworn in as the 47th president of the United States. Not only do they now have the White House, but they have the Congress, they have the Senate, they have the House. So a lot of the things that you hear coming out of Trump, expect that they're going to happen. And when we start listening to Democrats turning around and saying, this is never going to happen, we're not going to allow it to happen, I want people to remember that the plurality of Americans, that the majority of Americans voted for Donald Trump, and if this is part of his agenda, he will try to get it through.
You take it seriously, Michael.
We need to be focusing, Jim. Yeah, but yes, I'm saying that exactly. Yeah. We need to. But where we really need to get serious is going back to grassroots, and we need to start getting the citizens so that we can talk about changing things in 2026. But expect what Donald is saying to become a reality.
Well, and then because Michael, one of the things that you've heard from his aides is that when he's talking about Greenland and Canada and the Panama Canal, he's just trying to get some leverage over some of these leaders, and this is all strategic and so on. Do you take that seriously, or do you take what he is saying seriously, that he would like these places to be part of the United States? And I mean, what are the consequences of that? I can think of several.
Well, let me be clear about something. This isn't the only country that's actually doing things like this. We see Putin now invading Ukraine, and then the conversation is that after Ukraine, he intends to go into Poland. We see China intending on taking Taiwan. So why not? If they're going to annex additional property and we'll call it a real estate transaction, well, why should Donald not do the same thing?
Yeah. I want to ask you about Special Counsel Jack Smith's final report on these cases against Trump. Trump's lawyers wrote to Merrick Garland yesterday urging him not to release it. They argue that doing so would interfere with presidential transition and so on. What are your thoughts on all this? We brought this up with Paula Reed. Did Merrick Garland just simply take too long with all of this?
Yeah, not only did Merrick Garland take too long, and I've been critical of Merrick Garland for a very long time. It's too bad he didn't become a Supreme Court judge, because that's where he belongs, where they can spend 4, 5, 6 months coming up with a decision. These cases needed to move expeditiously. Not only did this case not move expeditiously, neither did the Alvin Bragg case. They waited, as Mark Pomerantz put it, over a year too long. So all of these issues now that are going on with sentencing and with the criminal conviction, I hate to say it, and people will get angry at me. I was very clear when I spoke to Vanity Fair. I believe that they should toss the case. There is no repercussion that is going to take place to Donald Trump on that case. As far as what Paula Reed said, I agree with her completely. Merrick Garland waited too long to bring in Jack Smith. Plain and simple. He is going to, meaning Donald Trump is going to shut that down. This case will never see accountability for whether he did or he didn't. Now, where she's also correct is that this case with Jack Smith has not been decided yet. So to release a report that has not been validated, that Jack Smith as the special counsel has not been validated, I think goes against process. And we have to start expecting process needs to be first, whether you like Donald Trump or you don't.
Yeah, and Michael, I mean, I do want to ask, if you dismiss the Alvin Bragg case, doesn't that allow Trump to escape accountability? Okay, yes, the judge in that case has said he's not going to go to jail and so on. He's not going to put him in jail before he's sworn in as president. But should that felony conviction be erased? Should the jury's work be thrown out?
And what does it really mean at the end of the day? Judge Merchan declared it an unconditional dismissal, meaning, as what you just said, there will be no probation, there will be no incarceration. So you sort of committed a crime. 12 jurors, independent jurors, made that determination, but there is no accountability, there's no repercussion. So if it makes people feel good to be able to say, oh, he's the felon president, why does that make you feel good? We got to go back to the reality, which is banks for felons. Usually you lose your bank accounts, you lose your credit cards, you can't do any business. No bank will give you loans. None of this is taking place with Trump. So what's the point? That's the only part I'm trying to say. If there's no accountability, what's the point?
And I guess, Michael, I mean, folks might be listening to this and say, well, what's going on with Michael Cohen? Why does he want to let Trump off the hook? What do you say to that?
I don't. And this is not about bending the knee. This is about living in reality. Donald Trump is going to be the president. He defied all odds. He turned around and he got the nomination. Not only did he get the nomination, he won the general election. So he's not the same as you and I. I went to prison for, in part, many of the things that Donald Trump was found guilty on, those 34 counts. Why does the justice system treat me differently? Because he's president of the United States, or at this moment, president-elect. It's a different system.
But doesn't that raise the question, and I did want to ask you this, what would be your advice to the people who are going into this new administration to work for Donald Trump? What should they be on the lookout for? Should they be concerned that they may end up like you?
Well, I think that they should be. In fact, just take a look at Rudy Giuliani, who you were talking about a moment ago. As the old mythological character Icarus, right? You fly too close to the sun. Unfortunately, those wax wings fall and you fall down to earth and you get splatted. It's exactly what happened to me. It's what happened to so many people that were in the orbit. Again, my only call is to the Democrats to start to wake up and understand that Trump is a better messenger than we are. We need to change the message. We need to start speaking to the citizens of this country for 2026 if we want to ensure our democratic republic doesn't get hurt. Now, mind you, that also brings to the question, there's an additional point that has to be brought up here, which is we don't know yet what they will try to do or not to do. And as a result of that, we should all just take a deep breath and wait. And if in fact,
I talked to you at the DNC and you were worried. Yeah, but Michael, I talked to you at the DNC and you were worried at that time that Donald Trump is elected, there will not be another election. You were worried about that.
I still remain concerned about that. However, at this point in time, we do need to wait to see what moves that they make, especially considering he has set up an administration that is 100% loyal to him and him alone. Not the Constitution, not America, but to Donald J. Trump.
And when you hear about Kash Patel, somebody like that being named FBI director, what goes through your mind?
No, like I said, I want to wait to see what they decide to do. But based upon Kash Patel's book and his comments, I think we all have something to be concerned about.
All right, Michael Cohen, good to talk to you. Thanks so much.
Great to see you, Jim.
All right, always appreciate it. We are following